In this video, I'm going to show you the real keys to success and the things that you need to get right if you want fantastic results when running Facebook ads for your e-commerce business. My Facebook ads agency has run Facebook ads for more than 1,000 e-commerce businesses over the past 5 years. We've literally spent tens of millions on ads for e-commerce businesses and generated hundreds of millions in revenue. So the first point that I want to make is that you should probably be prepared to pay more to acquire a customer than what you're currently prepared to pay. Now, I speak to e-commerce business owners all the time that are running Facebook ads, right? And I'll often ask them, okay, what's your average order value? And they might say, our average order value is $80. And I say, what are you willing to pay to acquire a customer given your average order value? Basically, what are you willing to have as a maximum cost per purchase? And I might hear something like, I don't know, 10% of that. So $8 cost per purchase to generate an $80 average order value. And I think that's crazy. I think it makes much more sense to significantly increase what you're willing to pay to acquire a customer. Firstly, because consistently acquiring customers at say $8 each is pretty unrealistic. Secondly, you're not going to be able to scale because Facebook ad campaigns produce better results when you spend smaller amounts because Meta's really good at working out your best possible prospects and they put your ads in front of those people first so that when you scale, you advertise to more people. Those people don't convert quite as well because they're not quite as keen and hyper responsive in your niche and therefore your cost per purchase goes up. If you've got a cap of say $8, you're just not going to be able to scale that campaign in terms of cost per purchase. And thirdly, there's tremendous value in acquiring a ton of customers, even if you do so and only break even on that initial transaction. Because provided you're selling high quality products and you have a range of products, people are going to want to come back. You can retarget, you can reactivate with SMS or email marketing. There's lots of ways that you can get those customers to buy again. So I've given a quite extreme example of someone wanting a 10x ROAS. They're only willing to pay 10% in terms of cost per purchase of what they're getting back in average order value. But even if someone said, look, I'm willing to pay 20%, $16 cost per purchase, I still think that's far too low. I would work out what your break-even point is. So let's say, for example, you operate with a 50% gross margin. It's a pretty easy example, right? So you generate $80 per customer on average, and $40 of that is the cost of goods that goes to the manufacturer. I'd be willing to pay up to $40 to acquire a new customer. Yes, you're going to be break even. Yes, you're not going to make money on that initial transaction, but you can then acquire tons of customers. Because you're willing to pay $40 to acquire a customer, you can spend a lot more than your competition who aren't willing to do that, by the way. That means you get loads of customers, you get thousands, tens of thousands of customers, and then you can sell to them again and again and again, and you build a much more successful business. It's why a lot of e-commerce businesses that operate at a really large scale and they get a lot of funding or outside backing or they work with a celebrity or something like that, they will operate even at a loss on that first transaction, and they know that if we just acquire tons of customers, we'll sell to them again and again and again, they'll love our products, they'll tell their friends and family, and we'll be better off as a business. So I'd really have a good think about how much you can actually afford to spend to acquire a customer. It's probably a lot more than you think it is. Now, of course, if you could do better than break even, then fantastic. To acquire that $80 average order value customer, if you spend $20 and you can do that at scale, brilliant. Like, of course, we would all want the lowest cost per purchase possible. But I think setting a much higher acceptable maximum sets you up much better to be able to scale and see more success over the long run and grab a lot more market share and a lot more customers. So the next thing I think that e-commerce business owners need to do and that don't do enough of is they don't obsess over AOV, average order value, and LTV, which is obviously average order value times the number of times that your customers actually purchase from you. So if you've got an $80 average order value and the average customer during their lifetime buys from you 5 times, then you have a $400 lifetime customer value. And I think that e-commerce business owners should obsess over those because the larger you can get those, your initial average order value and then your LTV, the more you can pay to acquire a customer on the front end. So the second point sort of ties in with the first point, right? So if we can increase our average order value from say $80 up to $120, that might mean that instead of being able to pay a maximum of $40 to acquire a customer, we can now pay $60 to acquire a customer. That might allow us to spend literally, I'm not kidding, 5 times as much on our ad and acquire close to 5 times more customers. It might end up being 3.5 or 4 times many customers because you're paying a little bit more per each one, but you know what I mean. And again, that ties into the first point, that that's a massive competitive advantage if you're able to get really aggressive on the front end, and it makes your ad campaigns much easier to succeed and much more profitable over the long run. Even if nothing changes about your cost per purchase and you keep all that where it is and you don't scale at all, just making more money from each customer makes everything more profitable, makes your whole business more profitable, makes your ad campaigns more profitable. So that's AOV. Then you've got lifetime value, which obviously if you increase your AOV, your average order value, that will inevitably increase lifetime value. But there are other things you can do in addition to that to further increase lifetime value, which is namely getting people to buy more often. So if you've got a recurring or a subscription business model, which obviously a lot of e-commerce businesses do have, it's about delivering a good enough product and a good enough customer experience where people want to stay and buy again and again and again. And the difference between a business that has customers that stick around for 5 months and a business that has customers that stick around for an average of 10 months is double the LTV with everything else being equal. So you can afford to pay at least double to acquire those customers. Your business is much more profitable, much more successful. It's a really, really big deal. And then there's also putting more effort into reactivation if you don't use a recurring or subscription model. So how can you get more aggressive on email marketing, on SMS remarketing, on retargeting on Facebook and on other platforms like Google to get those customers to buy again and again? Can you be smart with giving people little taster products and discount codes to get them back and repurchasing and things along those lines? I think if you put more focus into that stuff and potentially even a little bit less focus into your cost to acquire a customer, which is where all the focus of e-commerce businesses is, right? They're like, we make $26 per customer. Our current cost per purchase is $12. I'm really trying to squeeze that $12 down to $10 cost per purchase. I need to get it down to 10. I hear that all the time. And you're like, it'd be way easier to take your average customer value from $26 to $30 and then achieve the same objective if you've got a 50% profit margin, gross margin, I should say. It's like, just think about it from the other side. I know that's not really like necessarily a Facebook ads tip for e-commerce businesses, but the amount of businesses that I coach and work with where they want to ask me about their ad campaigns and I sort of try and switch it and I'm like, look, I'm telling you this part is more important. Let's work this out and we'll see much better results from it. Okay, the next point is that, and I think this is one that I've only become more and more convinced of over time, and that's that long-term success comes from brand. If you have a stronger brand, a strong and positive brand association, I should say, with your products, with your business, it makes sales much more reliable. You're going to sell at much larger volumes, and you're also able to charge much higher prices. I mean, we can all think of examples of products where it's basically the same product being sold as what you could from a regular commodity unbranded product, but you're able to charge 5 times, 10 times as much. I mean, think of like a plain white t-shirt, right? You can buy that for just a few bucks, or you can spend $100 or more on a plain white t-shirt because it's got like a little emblem somewhere that associates a brand with it. So we will understand the benefits of brand, and this is just something that the more and more I've done this and more I've been convinced that this is important. The question then becomes, if you're an e-commerce business, how do you actually build a positive brand association? How do you do that? Because it's not, the colors on your website or your packaging. I mean, these things do matter. They are important. It's part of the story, but it's not the whole thing. And it can obviously take a long time to build a brand. I think the fastest way for e-commerce businesses to do that is to hire influencers. I think just about every e-commerce business, there's going to be influencers that are just perfect, that create lots of content around the products that you offer. They're in that niche. They're well liked within that community. Their advice carries a lot of weight. And you can hire influencers to A, promote your products, classic influencer marketing. But B, my favorite method is to send some product to influencers. And obviously you're going to have to pay them for this service as well. It's not just getting free product. And get them to record video ads for you, showing how they use the product, why they love it, all that sort of stuff. And I think that's much better than like traditional influencer marketing, which is just getting them to post about it on their socials, because those posts are very they don't stick around very long. They're not very sticky, right? They post, you might see a bump in sales for 24 hours, great, and then it's gone. Whereas if you get them to record video ads for you about your product, you can use those in your own ad campaigns for weeks, months, maybe even years if they're strong enough. And you can immediately, what people do is if they see someone that they really like talking about your product and doing so in a good way, and being realistic about it, we can all imagine examples where this is just obviously been done poorly, but done well. And then immediately start to associate the things that they like with that person with your brand as well. So if they find that person is really friendly and trustworthy, they'll start to feel that same way about your products and your brand. That's the fastest way to do it. I don't think enough e-commerce business owners are doing that. This is particularly important, I feel, if your product is somewhat commoditized. And a lot of e-commerce business owners just think, no, my product's not commoditized, it's completely different from my competitors. If your prospects can't tell the difference, it's not. Even if you think there's a difference, your prospects can't tell the difference, there's not. So one way to overcome that is like, well, we're going to work with some mega influencers or even some micro influencers in your space. That can also work. You can find a range depending on your budget and test things out. And that's going to immediately differentiate you from the competition, because when your whatever pops up alongside all the other whatevers, if your whatever is being demonstrated by someone that you know your audience will recognize, that's a complete game changer. When it comes to influencer marketing, we've got lots of experience with this. It can be quite hit or miss with who you work with. So you can sometimes hire someone that completely flops, doesn't make any difference. Other times you can hire people that cut your cost per purchase by 60, 70%. That absolutely is possible with the right person. It's not always easy to do, to find the right person. You're gonna have to test. You might have to convince them, you might have to pay them well. But I think over the long run, that is something that is undervalued by e-commerce businesses, the impact that can have, not overvalued. And particularly when you're using it in your own ad campaigns, you can therefore amplify the effect of them being associated with your brand that much more, because you can guarantee how many people you're going to put in front of. You can run it for months and maybe even years, and it doesn't cost much more to do it that way than just getting an influencer to post on their own socials, because they've got to make a video about the stuff anyway. So why not do it in a way, so it shouldn't cost you much more, and why not do it in a way that you can benefit from it over the long run? And then also, when you do it that way, you also save on ad creative costs, because the influencer's doing it for you. So you probably don't have to therefore pay the videographer to create the product. Like, they're going to do it for you, and they're probably pretty good on camera because, well, they're an influencer. It's what they do, right? So building brand is absolutely essential. Think about that in terms of your interactions with your customers. So your packaging and your website and all that, and it is important. All those touch points, it wants to have the right tone, whatever it is that you're advertising, and wants to be pitched at the right level. But the way to supercharge this and build brand is with influencers, in my experience. And we can all think of businesses that have, just come out of nowhere, and they're worth, take Prime, for example. You know, it's like an energy drink effectively, right? But because it's got huge influencers and KSI and Logan Paul behind it, it's like a multi-billion-dollar company already. That's bonkers. How were they able to build that brand? And it's the brand that's selling it, because I don't know the product specifically, but I imagine it's not that differentiated from other sports energy drinks, right? Is it that much better than the others? I doubt it. It's the brand that's got it from nowhere to multi-billion-dollar company really, really quickly. And if you're smart, you can work with the right people and benefit from that. Now, I've got a bunch more points that I want to cover in this video that I think you're going to find really valuable. Before I do, I just want to quickly let you know that my company, my agency, offers done-for-you Facebook and Instagram advertising services. So if you want, we can create, manage, optimize your ad campaigns for you, most likely help you get much better results, and take all that workload off your hands. We have so much experience working with e-commerce businesses. As I said, more than 1,000 e-commerce businesses over the past 5 years, so you'd be in very good hands. If you're interested, there is a link in the video description. You can click on that, come through to a page on our website, and just book a free, no obligation call with one of my team members to find out more about how we work and how we might be able to help you. So if you're interested, go ahead and do that, and hopefully we get a chance to work together very soon. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is Advantage Plus shopping campaigns. Now, you tend to find that with e-com advertisers, they either go one way or the other when it comes to their Facebook ads. They're either all into Advantage Plus shopping and they're going to run those exclusively, or they're only using manual sales campaigns and they're going to run those exclusively. And I think that somewhere in the middle is a better approach. So if you've never run Advantage Plus shopping campaigns before, I would absolutely test them. For those that aren't familiar, perhaps you've only run manual sales campaigns, an Advantage Plus shopping campaign is effectively a tailored campaign. And what I mean by that is Meta fixes a lot of the various options. So you have less functionality, you have less control, and Meta's basically saying, don't worry, we'll run a lot of this for you. So you have less inputs around targeting, around changing things like placement options, and you have to trust Meta with a lot more. Now, when Advantage Plus shopping first came in, we were much more skewed towards manual sales campaigns because we know what we're doing and we like the control and being able to adjust things and do that to improve results. But as obviously AI is getting smarter, which is what's being used to make Advantage Plus shopping campaigns work. As that's getting smarter and getting better and better over time, Advantage Plus shopping campaigns are getting more and more effective. You're handing over the control of a lot of things to Meta, and that is producing better results. So what I would say is that you should absolutely test Advantage Plus shopping, but don't be surprised if it's not the best performing option for you yet. And what the advice I've given a lot of e-com business owners is, look, retest this every 6 months, okay? And as it gets better and better, that's assuming it doesn't work for you as well. It might work better than manual sales campaigns, in which case you can switch over. Now, with the Advantage Plus shopping, I should say that there is still room for competitive advantage. Don't think that Meta's going to do everything. So your ad creative still really matters, right? Your offers still really matter. So there's absolutely work to still be done. I've also seen some advertisers be like, I use Advantage Plus shopping, I don't need to do anything. No, that's not true. But I do like Advantage Plus shopping. One thing you should also be aware of with Advantage Plus shopping is that it does retarget a little bit heavy. So in terms of you think about when you give Meta a lot of control to advertise to who they want to advertise to, they have to decide how much of the budget is going to be spent on warm audiences and how much of the budget is going to be spent on cold audiences. Meta's going to be able to work all that out. I think it retargets a little bit heavy, and what you typically see is if a lot of money is spent on the warm audiences, you get great results early on, but then obviously you burn through those people quite quickly and then results often drop off. So if you do switch from manual sales campaigns to Advantage Plus shopping and you see great results for a bit, don't immediately think, aha, Advantage Plus shopping is the way to go forever, because you might see those results drop off for the exact reason that I just described. So I like it, test it, use it. You can always run both in your mix, but it's not quite there yet to fully, I would just say, everyone switch over to Advantage Plus shopping. One of the things that could help us get there is a new feature that is coming out soon, and that's a customer acquisition feature. So, I said Advantage Plus shopping retargets a bit heavy, like too much of the budget spent on retargeting. Soon, we should be able to say to it, I want you to weight new customers more heavily. So in terms of I want you to spend more money acquiring new customers. They're more valuable to my business. Google Ads has this feature as part of Performance Max, and Advantage Plus shopping is to some extent Meta's equivalent of that. And I'm sure it's going to come to Meta very soon, because they already have those breakdowns in terms of reporting. You'll be able to see that when you create the Advantage Plus shopping. You've got, You've got engaged audiences, existing customers, and new customers as a breakdown. Well, I basically think we're going to be able to choose between those three how we want to allocate our budgets. Yeah, something to test, but not necessarily completely rely on at this point. Okay, so the next point is that ad creative is the most important part of your whole ad campaign. Obviously, there's what you offer, but I'm assuming to some extent that's going to be fixed. Now, you can get clever with that. You can offer discounts and you can bundle in products and things along those lines as an e-commerce business. But assuming that is relatively fixed and you can't sort of change that quickly and easily, ad creative becomes the most important thing. And I think that a lot of advertisers don't spend enough of their overall budget on ad creative. So I see a lot of e-commerce advertisers where they're happily spending $10,000 a month on ads, but the idea of spending $1,000 on a videographer to produce a really nice product demonstration video, they wouldn't do it. And I think that's often quite silly, because I think if most e-commerce businesses took 10% of their budget, their ad budget, and spent that on the creative, the ads then only need to perform 10% better with the better quality creative in order for that to be a net positive, if that makes sense. And I think that if you've gone from ad creative that's fairly mediocre, which a lot of e-commerce businesses have, particularly if the business owners do it themselves and they don't really know what they're doing creative-wise, which is fine, by the way. I'm not very good at creative. I always have other people on my team to do creative, because it's not my strong suit either. If you're going from something that's a bit mediocre and you spend a bit of money, say 10% of your budget, on getting some really nice creative made, then that's almost certainly going to produce more than a 10% improvement in your return on ad spend within the ad account, and therefore it will more than pay for itself, and it may well produce a 30, 40, 50% return on ad spend on that. So it's a bit of a mindset shift, and I think that's something that we've learned more and more, and we often have this battle with clients, right, where we're like, look guys, I'm telling you, let's spend it on here and it'll help improve our results that much more. And so something I'd encourage you to do. Now, of course, we've already talked about using influencers to create your ads, which is kind of a two birds, one stone, because yes, you're paying for the creative to be made, but you're also paying for the brand association from the influencer. So in terms of cost effectiveness, that can work really, really well, as opposed to hiring an expensive video agency to produce something that looks fantastic, or a photographer to take your product into a studio and get really professional photos made. But yeah, just a mindset shift, and something I think you'll find valuable. If you can't scale, the solution is to make more ads. So Meta's really good at finding the best possible prospects within your market when you're advertising using a small budget. And that often means that when you've got a small budget, you will see your best return on ad spend, your lowest cost per purchase. Because there's going to be some people within your audience, it's going to be a tiny, tiny percentage that are just so keen about what you offer. They buy everything that pops up in front of them that's to do with your niche, right? Now, as you spend more money, Meta goes from those people right at sort of the center of the circle to advertising to people that are still keen but slightly less. And as you spend more, it's still keen but slightly less. And as you spend a little bit more, it's, kind of interested. And as you spend a little bit more, it's like maybe was interested one day, might be sometimes again. And you keep going out and out and out, and you're advertising to people that are less and less interested. Therefore, your ads need to be better to get those people to convert and to get them to convert at a return on ad spend that is still profitable for you. So the best way to create ads that are good enough to do that is to make a whole bunch more. Because a couple of things happen when you make a whole bunch more ads. Firstly, you get better at it as a skill, and making ads is a skill. So you get the practice, you sort of learn, okay, this hook worked, that hook didn't, this imagery worked really well, this type of carousel performed well, that one didn't, and you learn, you get better, you develop that skill. But also when you make a ton of ads and you put time and effort into making each one, you kind of end up stumbling across ads that perform really well. And often it's a surprise. I mean, people who've been involved in advertising, but also content marketing is the same thing. Often the ones you think are going to crush and do really well don't, and then something out of left field, you'd be like, really? That is bizarre that one worked really well, but it did. The only way you sort of stumble across those and find those is you keep testing and trying to find what works in your niche. So if you think about the inability to scale, people often think about it as a targeting issue or a settings within the ad campaign issue, and it almost never is. It's almost just the ads themselves aren't good enough to get people who aren't super, super keen to convert. And if you can improve your ads, you should then be able to scale. When I say people can't scale, by the way, I should quickly clarify that I'm talking about people that are, every time they try and scale, they see their cost per purchase go through the roof and their ROAS really fall. If you are in that scenario, that's the solution, is you need better ads. The best way to do that is just to make a whole bunch. Now, of course, there are ways that you can look to speed that up, right? You can spend some time in the Meta ad library trying to take a look at what competitors are using. Take a look at ads that are 3 months older or more. Those are almost certainly profitable. Model from those. But you also just have to go through the work and create a ton of ads and get really good at it. Okay, I would also recommend that you lean into seasonality as opposed to away from it. And I've spoken to a lot of business owners where they will say things like, okay, Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter, we sell tons of chocolate. How do we increase our chocolate sales in July and August? I understand why they're asking that, because they want to sort of flatten out their revenue and make their business more consistent, and that has advantages. But I think you are fighting the tide when you do that. You are trying to run away from seasonality instead of taking advantage of it. So I would encourage those businesses instead to really scale back their budgets during their low seasons, and maybe just running retargeting at that point to keep your regular customers that buy often going. And then really load the budget into those times of the year when you know your results are likely to be much better. I think if you do that approach and take a look at the whole year, you'll end up with a much better return on ad spend during the whole year, because you're making hay whilst the sun shines. I think it's a lot easier to do it that way. So this applies to our business, right? We know that in terms of signing up new clients, December is our quietest month because all the Christmas campaigns, they were all started in the months before that. And then any other type of business is waiting till the new year to start working with us typically. Which, by the way, if you are watching this in and around December, it's actually a great time of year to sign up to become a client of ours if that's what you're interested in, because we can then get everything set up and ready for the new year, and you can hit the ground running. But most people don't think about that, but whatever. But yeah, so I just think it's often easier, and this is kind of a business lesson as well. It's often easier to put your foot on the pedal when it comes to the good things, as opposed to trying to compensate for all the weaknesses, as opposed to trying to round everything out. I would apply that to your marketing as well. Like, okay, our Meta ads are performing really well, but we want to have ads on LinkedIn and TikTok and Google and spread ourselves really thin and get some ads elsewhere to even things out. It's like, if you're seeing great results in one place, just go for it. That's likely to deliver a better return on marketing investment overall, okay? Next point is to optimize using return on ad spend. And if you're an e-commerce business, basically return on ad spend only. You can easily get lost with looking at CPMs, cost per thousand impressions, CTRs, click-through rates, and all sorts of various other metrics that you find within a Meta ad account. But really it's your return on ad spend that matters. So I would absolutely focus on that. And the reason why I'd rather you focused on return on ad spend over simply cost per purchase or cost per result is because return on ad spend will factor in average order value. So some customers are worth a lot more than others, and it, depending on what e-commerce platform you're using, it's probably Shopify, isn't it? Then you'll be able to have that data fed back into your ad account so you can see, okay, we spent £5,000 this month, we generated £18,000 in revenue, we've got a, what would that be, a 3.5-ish return on ad spend. That's nicely profitable for us. We're acquiring customers, we can scale, that's not, we need to make adjustments, etc., etc. So base your decisions on ROAS, not just at the top level like I just described, but also which campaign type is performing better, Advantage Plus Shopping or manual sales campaigns. Look at ROAS. Which ads are performing better? Look at ROAS. Which offers are doing better results? Look at ROAS and use that to stop the underperformers and go ahead and go with the best performing ones. So another point around optimization is to use conversion volume, not time, to make decisions. It's probably the question I get asked the most from all Facebook advertisers, not just ones that are advertising e-com businesses, but absolutely applies to them as well.
How long are you running the ads for before you see like that one's doing well? What's your sort of limit or ad spend? How much time or how much money are you spending on it before you go, no, that one's crap or that one's doing really well?
That's a really good question. I get that. It's probably the single most common question I get asked in comments on videos.
And they want me to say it's 7 days or something along those lines, which is probably a good average, but it absolutely relies on conversion volume, not time. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's say you're an e-com business that sells something really expensive, like, I don't know, luxury barbecues, for example, that cost thousands of pounds. And you've got a relatively small ad budget, right? You've got an ad budget of £10 a day. It's going to take you a very long time to generate enough conversions to know which ads are performing better. Like if you're only making a couple of sales a week, then it's going to take potentially months to know which ads perform better. But on the other end, if you're selling something really inexpensive, let's say like a really inexpensive like little kid's toy, and your cost per purchase is really low, just a couple of dollars, and you have a budget that's in the thousands of dollars a day, well, in that scenario, you're going to get so much conversion volume so quickly that you're very quickly going to be able to work out this ad performs better than this one, this campaign structure is better than this one, and therefore you're going to be able to make decisions in hours. So you could literally have one business where I'd say you need to run these ads for a month before you know which one works best. And another business where I say, we'll be able to tell this afternoon which ads work best. So don't think about this in terms of time. Think about it in terms of conversion volume. Now, if you're not very mathsy, you're not very data, not very analytically minded, spend a bit of time with a statistical significance calculator. They are free tools online, and you can simply enter in your numbers, and the calculator will tell you, ad A is producing better results and we're 90% sure, so basically they're 90% confident that ad A will always outperform ad B if you keep running it. And you start to do that, you start to get a feel. If it says there's no statistical significance, you're too early. If you've got statistical significance, then you can make a decision. It's just a really simple way to sort of take a look at things and go, is that actually outperforming that one? Because we've all had that experience where you've got one ad that's produced 15 conversions and they're a little bit more expensive than this other ad that's only produced 3 conversions on a cost per conversion basis, and you're like, which one's actually better? Well, you can use these free tools, and that's the best way to go about it. Now, if you are big enough to justify the cost, I'd recommend that you use Hyros. So Hyros, for people that aren't aware, is effectively tracking software that allows you to get much more accurate data, which then also allows your ad campaigns to optimize a lot better, because we know that Meta needs data to be able to optimize ad campaigns and produce better results. It is relatively expensive, so I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, particularly if you're just getting started. But if you are spending a reasonable amount on ads, and you'll have to get in touch with Hyros and they'll be able to give you a quote on how much it would cost to make it work for your business. But I would recommend that once you're spending a good amount, you do go ahead and do that. We use Hyros. I've actually got an affiliate link. I'll include that in the video description. So if you are thinking about using it, it won't cost you any extra, but just helps me out, so that'd be much appreciated. But we use it as a business and we find it really valuable, and the extra data and tracking is helpful, Not only, as I said, for Meta being able to optimize, but also for you being able to optimize as the advertiser and work out what works and what doesn't. There is a sort of scale thing required to make that work. I don't have much experience with other tracking softwares. There may well be other ones that you can find that are less expensive. I only have experience with Hyros, so that's why I mentioned them. But I do think that there becomes a point where you're getting past, $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month in ad spend, where you start to go, okay, we can up our game here. I think that's going to be worth it and help with our results. It's not worth it if you're spending, a couple $100 a month, because the cost of the software is going to exceed the improvement in results you would get from it. But if you are at a bit more of a larger scale, then go for it. And if you're spending a really good amount, absolutely go for it. I think it's a no-brainer. So the next point, and this is really key and not one that a lot of e-com advertisers think about, is that you need to have a differentiated product. Now, there are a number of different ways to do that. You can do that with brand, like we talked about before. It could be the same product, but it's effectively differentiated because of the brand association. You can do that with different features. You could do that with a different price point. It's the same as everyone else, but ours is a lot cheaper. But you do need to find a way to do that. Otherwise, you're just not going to have success over the long term. Now, obviously, a lot of e-commerce businesses advertising on Facebook and Instagram are drop shipping businesses. And one of the biggest issues with drop shipping businesses is you're advertising the same product as tons of other advertisers, hundreds, sometimes even thousands. Often you're using the creative that was produced by the manufacturer. So you're all running the same ad creative, and it's just not going to work. And even if it does work for a short term, it's definitely not going to work over the long term, because other people see what you're doing, they'll copy you, and then it becomes a race to the bottom on price that competes away all your profit margin, and you don't make any money. So over the long run, you have to find a way to differentiate. You can do that brand, price. You can do that with different features. Like if you genuinely add something to a product that no one else does, create something new, that's a great way to do it. But that kind of feeds back into, even if you do that, people will copy you eventually. So the long-term success is going to come from that brand element. And I really want to draw that home, because I think that is absolutely key. But yeah, I've said this before, and I've reviewed a lot of ad accounts and products where this is the case. If your prospects can buy what you sell on Amazon for less, your campaign will not work. Now that sounds like quite obvious. It's not something a lot of e-commerce business owners think, particularly those that are new to e-commerce and new to running Facebook ads for their e-commerce business, but it's true. Put more effort into customer reactivation. Now, I'm not saying more effort into customer reactivation than initial customer acquisition. You wouldn't normally, for example, spend more on retargeting than you would on cold audience campaigns unless you had a really big customer base or really large warm audiences, but just more than probably what you are currently doing. Almost everyone thinks about new customers, and they sort of just assume that their existing customers will remember their products and buy them, and they'll come back, and some will, but the vast majority won't. They're not thinking about your business, they're thinking about their own lives, they're distracted. You need to find a way to get them to buy again. Retargeting campaigns on Facebook are a great way to do that. You can also use email marketing, and there are other ways you can send them free stuff. And we touched on some of those later on. But I just think as a balance, when it comes to marketing and advertising for e-commerce, most e-commerce businesses undervalue customer reactivation. And I think this just comes from a place of, like, as a business owner, you're thinking about your business and your products all day long. So you kind of almost on a subconscious level think that your customers are doing the same, and they aren't. They absolutely aren't. They're not thinking about you or your products. So putting your stuff in front of them again and again, even if they've already bought, I think is really valuable. A lot of advertisers have told me that they think it's a waste of money to put ads in front of people that have already bought. For the reasons I just described, that's not true. And also, because your customer base is probably a relatively small percentage of your overall advertising audience, like how much are you really going to need to spend? If you've got 5,000 customers, let's say, it's going to cost you a tiny amount to put your products in front of those people on a regular basis. Well worth doing. So the next point is really important if you are scaling or looking to scale your Facebook ads for e-commerce businesses. And that's to focus on absolute returns as opposed to return on ad spend. Now that might sound contradictory because I talked about using return on ad spend, but I'll explain what I mean and when this applies. And I'll give you an example to sort of help explain this, right? So let's say you're currently spending $1,000 a month on your ads and you're getting a 15x return on ad spend. Amazing, that'll be fantastic results. So you're spending $1,000, you're generating $15,000 in revenue from those ads. So you've got a $14,000 a month profit. Obviously there are other costs associated, but after your ad spend. So you might think this is amazing. I'm going to scale these to the moon. And let's say you take your $1,000 a month ad spend and you scale it all the way up to $100,000 a month. Now, if you do that, you will almost certainly not see a 15x return on ad spend when you're spending $100,000 a month. That's just unrealistic for the reasons we've been through in this video. Now, at that $100,000 a month ad spend, you might drop all the way down to, say, a 4x return on ad spend. So you're spending $100,000 on ads and you're generating $400,000 in revenue. So you might think, I've gone from a 15x return on ad spend and now I'm at a 4x return on ad spend. Why would I scale? That's silly. But think about it. At the 4x return on ad spend when you're spending $100,000, you're generating $400,000 in revenue, minus your $100,000 ad spend gives you a $300,000 profit after ad spend costs. I know obviously there's costs of goods and things like that, but assuming you've got good margins, you will be well better off with the higher amount. Like, I would much rather a $300,000 a month profit from my advertising than a $14,000 a month profit from advertising, even though return on ad spend is much better at those lower levels. That's something to be aware of, particularly as you scale and you go, okay, we're not making as good a return on ad spend, but actually, are we making a lot more profit overall? Yes. And that's really the objective, isn't it? So just be aware of that. I've seen some advertisers sort of get messed up with that, and you want to focus on absolute returns. Now, in terms of optimizing, so when you're spending $100,000 a month, if you're looking at ad A, ad B, ad C, you still want to optimize based on return on ad spend. So you want to be like, okay, well, ad A, turn it off. It's not as good as ad B, and ad C is doing all right. We'll give that a bit more time. You know, you still want to make those decisions based on that, but it's just as an overall, expect your return on ad spend to drop, but it doesn't matter if you're actually making more profit. And in that scenario, you're also acquiring a lot more customers and they can buy again and again. You're going to build a much bigger business and it's going to be much better overall. Okay, and the next point is to sell with both scarcity and urgency. By the way, apologies if you can hear my dog snoring in the background. He's sat by my foot just here and asleep and snoring. Hey fella, you having a snooze and you're yipping. I can't have that in a video. Dog's in with me today. Sell with scarcity and urgency, right? Now, a lot of advertisers get these two things mixed up and they don't realize that there's a difference. There is, and ideally in your ads, you want to focus in on both. So scarcity is when there's not much of a thing left, so you need to go ahead and grab it. So let's say, you know, you're selling a certain product and you've only got 10 left. And you can say that in your ads. We've only got 10 left. Once they're all sold, they're gone. If you're interested, go ahead and grab it now. That's scarcity. Urgency is when something is going to end it's using time effectively, right? So it might be our 30% off discount that we're currently running ends on the 30th of June, and you're running this ad, you know, towards the end of June. So you've got that, I need to grab it because it's going to run out, it's scarce, and I also need to take advantage of this 30% discount because that's going to disappear too. They're two separate things, obviously linked, and you want to try and hit both. And I think that a lot of e-commerce businesses underdo promotions. They underdo not only, a lot of advertisers know they need to use a discount, right? But they don't use scarcity often at all. But of course, whatever you're selling is scarce, right? Like there's limited stock, so absolutely say it in your ads. And they underdo the urgency in their promotion. We just got an ad up that's got a 25% discount. No. Make sure that it has an end date. It's absolutely fine, by the way, if that date ends and then you run a new promotion the next month. Make it a little bit different. You don't want to be using a 30% discount that ends at the end of every month. That doesn't come across overly well. People see your ads over time. So mix it up. Like right now it's a 30% discount. Next month it's going to be a buy two, get one free. There's all sorts of things that you could do on that. But have some urgency in it where people need to act and take action and go ahead and buy now. Because if they think they can buy later and still get as good a deal, they will. And the problem with that is that people think they're going to buy later, but they forget, they get distracted, they do something else and they don't come to it. We've all had that experience as consumers of things where you think, oh, I need to grab one of those, but you can't do it right there and then. So you think, oh, I need to grab one of those. And then you completely forget about it. And it's not until you're next in that scenario where you need this product that you go, oh, I forgot to order this thing that I really need. How silly of me. And then you forget again. And I mean, we've all been through that, right? Where you do that cycle like 12 times before you actually go ahead and buy the product. So you want to try and make sure that people don't do that with your stuff and that they're much more likely to go ahead and buy it. So that's two things I would look to add in: scarcity and urgency, and not enough e-com advertisers do it. Okay, so the last point that I want to make, and this is one of the most powerful, is to get a lot more specific with your messaging. So let's say, for example, one of the products you sell is are running shorts, right? And you can just advertise those as running shorts. Or you could get really granular and create separate ads. So you could have one ad that talks about them as cross-country running shorts, one ad that talks about them as winter running shorts, one ad that talks about them as marathon running shorts. Now, they could be the same pair of shorts, but if in your messaging you are specifically talking about that subsection of your niche, so let's say the difference between like marathon running, which is typically done on a road, and cross-country running, which obviously is not, people will identify as one or the other often. Now there's going to be crossover, but some people will be like, oh, I only do cross-country running. And some people are like, I run marathons and I train for them. And some people are going to be like, I need a pair of shorts to run in the winter or whatever. As I said, it could be the exact same product, but if someone is a cross-country runner and they're into that and they see an ad pop up for cross-country running shorts, your ad, your product is going to stand out much more to them than all the other running shorts that they're being advertised. And that is a competitive advantage. They're far more likely to pay attention to it because they're like, oh, this is perfect for me. This speaks to me. This is going to meet my needs. And then because they're more likely to pay attention, they're more likely to click, they're more likely to come through and purchase. You obviously want to back that up with on the product sales page. You want to make sure that in an ideal world, you'd create a separate landing page, right? So you create one for cross-country running shorts, one for marathon running shorts. Again, it could be the same product, but they have separate pages. But even if you don't do that and go to that extent, just make sure that you have something specifically on the page itself that has cross-country running. It's a little bit extra effort, but it can make you could see a 40% improvement in return on ad spend by taking the time to break things down into the sub-niche and the messaging, because we've all had that experience where we've bought something, we've gone, yeah, the product was okay, but it wasn't quite right for what I was looking for. With that messaging, you overcome that because they're like, yes, I'm a marathon runner, and these aren't just any old running shorts for someone doing, 5Ks every now and then. This is for me because I run marathons, and these are marathon running shorts. I've probably belabored that point a little bit, but hopefully I've got the message across there because it is important. Now, something I haven't discussed in this video at all is Facebook ads targeting, and that's because I've created a full updated Facebook ads targeting tutorial that you can watch right here. And unless you are 100% convinced that you're using the perfect Facebook ads targeting for your business, which, it's probably unlikely, I'd say, I strongly recommend that you go ahead and check out this video.